Hello everyone. The new SnapBridge app for iOS just came out this week and I have been eagerly awaiting it so that I could use it with my new Nikon D500 because I've had the D500 for months and SnapBridge has not been available to me and I've been wanting to share it with all of you guys. So it's finally out and I will be doing a video shortly where I actually open up the app for the first time and connect my camera to it and see how it works. But first, I have to update the firmware on my D500. I have been remiss. I think there have been 3 firmware updates and I've not done any of them. So you're not alone if you don't update your firmware regularly. So, okay, this is what I need to do. I've got my D500 right here set up. I have another camera, the D800, going to film the back of this camera so you guys can see what it looks like in on the back of the camera as I'm doing the firmware update. And I've also got my computer right here and I am screen recording so that you guys can see that. And I will edit it all together and you guys will be able to see what the process actually looks like in real time. I do have a video where I go in depth about exactly how to find a firmware update for your camera, both Nikon and Canon, and then also I have a separate video for each of those 2 brands on really how to apply a firmware update. So I won't go into too many details on exactly what I'm doing. I go into much more detail in those other videos, but right now I just want to share with you guys the process in real time, how I'm going to do it. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is I'm on NikonUSA.com and I need to find the D500 page so that I can find the firmware update. Look, D500 firmware updates. They make it so easy for us. Okay, view the download center. That's what I'm looking for, firmware. And I want the most recent. I don't need the distortion control data right now. What I want is the most recent firmware update, which I believe is this one. What they want you to do is check the firmware version and on the back of the camera. So let's come over here, turn on the camera, go to the menu and find the firmware version. I am at 1.00 and I need to get to 1.1. So that should be fine. I knew I didn't have that already, so really not that big a deal. I'm going to go ahead and download. I need to turn my camera off. I'm going to put this firmware update on the SD card in the camera. It is all downloaded, so I can get rid of this. You know what? I'm going to have to format this card. Frankly, I'm not sure if that's completely required, but I'm going to do it anyway. Format memory card, just this one. Okay. Turn this off. I'm going to use the SD card to transfer over what we've just downloaded. Into the computer you go. I've got my download. I've got the update. No, that drives me crazy when Photos opens. Okay. And I should just make sure. Typically they want the bin file just to go into the top level of your card. But let's just make sure. Nothing wrong with checking the directions real quick. Instructions, instructions, instructions. Where are you? Updating the camera firmware. Okay. Click it, bin file onto the card. Okay, yeah. Drag it, copy, 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 fantastic. Eject. And back in the camera. Okay, now we're going to turn the camera on. Menu, down to firmware version, and now it says update right here. So we hit update. Yep, we're going to go all the way to the new one. And this can take some time. It can take a lot of time. We'll see how it goes. But this is what it looks like on the back of the camera. It's like, don't turn it off. It could take several minutes. Oh, we have some progress. That's exciting. So let's see what this update actually does. Let's see what some of the firmware versions actually have done. So 1.00, which was where I was, to 1.01, some of the options in the setup menu for language weren't appearing correctly. This is why I didn't update them, because I saw what it was and I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to worry about that right now. And then the next version was having to do with memory cards. There were some errors with some of the memory cards, and so they fixed that. And then what this one does is it adds support for the iOS version of SnapBridge. So, and then a couple of other things. So I'm looking forward to trying out SnapBridge. It looks like we're not even halfway done yet, but that's okay. We can just sit and wait, because I put a fresh battery in that camera before I started this. And it's on airplane mode, which helps to preserve the battery life, in case you didn't know that. Okay, what else do we have going on here? What else did this firmware version do? Do you guys know what firmware is? Firmware is basically the software that runs your camera. So it's the software that runs the hardware. It just tells it all how to work, you know, what languages to list out, how to work with SnapBridge. All of that stuff is what firmware is. So sometimes they can do little updates like the language list, or big updates like provide this whole new functionality, which is being able to wirelessly control and trigger your camera with your phone. My phone right here. So they can do all kinds of stuff with firmware updates. All right, still waiting. Let's just fast forward through this process. Oh, and the update is completed. It tells me to turn the camera off. Okay, let's turn the camera back on and just check to make sure that the firmware update was actually applied. Go back to firmware version, and it says that I am now at 1.10, and that is the one that I want. What I'm going to do now is go back to the menu, and I'm going to format this card again, because I don't want that update sitting on my memory card. All right, I'm done. That's it. It's as easy as that. Sometimes it takes a little longer, sometimes it takes a little less time, but that's it. My firmware version is all done, and now I get to put SnapBridge on my phone. Actually, I already have it on my phone, but now I get to actually open it up, and I'll do a whole nother video, which you guys will see in a couple days, with me first using SnapBridge. So if you have any questions about firmware or firmware updates, let me know. Typically, following the directions is just the best thing to do. And if it doesn't work the first time, go back through, follow the directions again, and just make sure that you're really following them to a T. And that's it. Talk to you guys later.